Welcome back, everybody. It's another live episode of New York State Sports, episode 26 here on IE Sports Radio, direct feed for all the sports. Rick Keeler back here with you. Another exciting show planned for you today. Of course, we'll still continue to talk Knicks and Rangers, both of 2-0. Rangers play Game 3 tonight, but there's another goalie in net for Carolina. What does it mean, and should the Rangers be concerned? The Knicks find out some more insight of the OJ Anunoby news. It's not very good. But does it really matter going into Game 3? Because Rick Carlisle might just file more calls to the league office. The Yankees go for a season sweep of the Astros. The Mets have a top prospect make their pitching debut as they prepare for a big next 7 games against their division rival. The Giants had a veteran wide receiver. And next week begins the season for the New York Liberty. Off a run of the WNBA Finals a year ago, can they go one step further this time? It's all coming up next here on New York State of Sports. We'll see you in a minute. You can follow me on Twitter or X, Abercracker555. Follow the show on X at NYStateSportsIE. Or you can also email me, rickjkeeler@gmail.com. Happy to hear from you. You can also join in on the live chat on Spreaker. Always happy to hear from you guys. Terrence here, Larry's here. We got a couple people here in the chat this afternoon, which is always fantastic. Next week is going to be our 10-year anniversary show, as all the shows will be doing something fun for this great occasion. And for the last almost 10 years, IE Sports Radio has brought you amazing content, ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, and other authorized media personnel, building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports cities around the country. Make sure to follow IE Sports Radio at IE Sports Radio on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. Keep with the latest in sports and with the shows. Check out the daily website. There's IESportsRadio.com for sports news, the latest blog. There is a new blog post up. You should check that out. Our Hall of Fame, Fans of the Month, pages dedicated to each podcast, our community forum. Stop by the shop and check out the cool merch. Thank you for making IE Sports Radio a direct feed for all that is sports. So, Taryn asked a question off the bat, so I'll start with that. So, which team between the Rangers and Knicks has you concerned? I really don't think there's I guess the Knicks, if there is a concern, just because of injuries. I mean, right now, to me, there's zero concern with the Rangers. I mean, they're playing as well as you can play right now, being 6-0 in the postseason. There's nothing really I can pick out. I mean, if anything, it's just stay out of the penalty box. The fact they've killed 10 penalties in 2 games against Carolina is crazy. Hurricanes right now are trying to mix things up a bit, and they're actually making a change in net, as I mentioned. Peter Kochetkov is in the net tonight. Game 3, 7 o'clock Eastern on TNT. As Frederik Andersen gets the bench. And Rod Brindamore said at the morning press conference for Carolina, he was trying to get Andersen some rest. First off, why are you trying to get a guy rest when it's the postseason? And I don't think Andersen was bad in Game 2. I don't think Frederik Andersen... if you want to do it, you should have did it after Game 1 when he gave up the goal to Panarin. But there wasn't really a goal in game 2 where I was like, wow, Anderson really let that one go. Considering the Rangers did the bulk of their work in the third period on the power play. And I think it just comes down to, can the Rangers keep that same focus? Remember last year they were up 2-0 against the Devils. Devils changed their goalie. It sparked things for New Jersey. They won the series. I think this is a different Ranger team. Now, they're not going to make any significant moves in terms of line changes. It doesn't sound like Matt Rempe is going to get the bench. Matt Rempe barely played in game 2. Rangers went with they went with most of their guys except Rempe at the end of stages. You saw Gaudreau and Vesey get reps in overtime. You didn't see Rempe get any reps, but the Rangers still have depth with 11 players they're throwing out there in overtime, and Carolina's throwing out 9. They're not putting the fourth line out there. So that's where the Rangers can excel. There's no rush to put Filipino in right now. And as we mentioned last week, Hedl is that break glass in case of emergency button. If you need him, use him. If you don't need him, keep giving him the rest he needs and keep trying to ease him back into a situation. And Ralph brings up a good point, talking about Patrick Waugh, what happened with the Islanders. The difference, I think, and it backfired for Waugh, but when we brought it up on the show, Sorokin was awful against Carolina during the regular season. It didn't make sense to put him in that spot. Kochetkov at least has been good against the Rangers this year. They did lose 1-0 in one of the games, but Kochetkov had a strong game, and then he won another one, which Carolina won 6-1. So Kochetkov's only given up 2 goals in 2 games. I don't see an issue with it because I think it's easier for Brenda more than shaking up the power play. Because the power play is just simply, once you get one puck going, it might be a sigh of relief if that happens. That's why the Rangers got to stay out of the penalty area. But I don't think there's that big a concern for the Rangers in this series. Because I think Carolina, to me, right now, is a team that is trying to figure out what happened to them. That they feel they had chances in both games in New York, and it didn't work either way. I think if it was 1-1, I would be the Knicks. I'd be a little more concerned-ish. Like if the Rangers lose tonight and we have the Game 3 post-game go Friday morning, I'm not going to sit here and be like, "Oh, the Rangers are in trouble," because it's hard to expect a team to go 16-0 in the playoffs. I mean, if they win tonight, they'll match what they did in 1994 and start the playoffs 7-0. It's a really hard thing to do. Knicks, on the other hand, there is some concern, and it goes back to OG Anunoby. Now, Ian Begley of SNY tweeted out earlier today, there's no official word from the Knicks yet on OG Anunoby's health status, but late Wednesday night there was pessimism internally about Anunoby's availability for Game 3 of Knicks-Pacers on Friday, 7 o'clock ESPN. That pessimism remained earlier Thursday morning as Anunoby's sore hamstring is feared to be more than just a cramp. Look, when you're watching that game last night, it looked like a cramp. And when they said sore left hamstring and out for the game, you knew, honestly, this is more than a cramp. Now, the good thing with the Knicks is they have the 2-0 series lead to back up on. So, where, let's say Indiana comes out on Friday, has a big game, and Anunoby probably doesn't play, it's not the end of the world. I mean, the Pacers are going to come out hungry. I think Rick Carlisle just sent another 5 calls to New York. Which, by the way, doesn't anybody find interesting that the league, and when you file calls, when you send video into the league about calls or non-calls, you have to put the other team in the email. So imagine the Knicks waking up and seeing 78 calls from the past 2 games in an email and wondering, what in the world is this? It blows my mind, and I talked about it earlier on the Knicks Pacers Game 2 post-game show. I get what Carlisle's trying to do. He's trying to deflect attention from the fact that his team missed 2 chances to win at the Garden in the fourth quarter. But after taking the high road in Game 1, it makes them look childish. It really does. And on this show, I took a shot at Nick Nurse for doing that, but at least Nick Nurse was consistent on it throughout the series. It looked like Carlisle was like, all right, well, I'll let game 1 go, but game 2, we got to get the calls. And there wasn't really any calls to give. Like, you look at that game 2, there was nothing that would suggest that there was a call that changed. As I said, there's 2 things Carlisle can be mad at. 1, Halliburton taking the shove in the back from Hart, and there was no call. And 2, Hartenstein getting called for double dribble and the refs convening and changing it when they didn't convene and change the kick, no kick situation with 50 seconds left in a tie game in game 1. I think that one Carlisle's got a thing to stand on, which, by the way, one of the things I also saw, there's an NBA referees X account that had a watch party last night going over calls and games. So we have this last 2-minute stuff, and now we're holding watch parties to talk about calls when we're trying to deflect from this series being about calls or being about the referees and just talking about the play on the court. I mean, that's ridiculous. I sometimes wonder like what decisions happen with this, but you never know. But Ralph says there's no concern with either team. I think you can have concern for the Knicks just from the standpoint of the longer this series goes, how many bodies they're going to have. And they played without all of them. They played without Mitchell Robinson this year. They played without OG Anunoby this year. So this is not something where they have to change the way they play. But when you get to the playoffs, you now have to rely on fewer and fewer guys. And Thibodeau doesn't want to add on to the rotation, if you will. Like, Precious Achiuwa is going to play more than 28 minutes. We saw Achiuwa play 40-plus minutes back in February, so it's not something he couldn't do. But you had to get Alec Burks in for 20 seconds last night. Does Jericho Sims see the floor? Like, how deep is Thibodeau going to have to go to the bench? Because you know the Pacers want him to go deep in the bench. They want more fouls called. They want that so that there's more foul trouble. Hartenstein, who normally is in foul trouble, had 1 foul last night. So, what's amazing about this series is the Knicks are taking it to the Pacers at Indiana's game. They're the ones making all the shots. They're the ones shooting over 50%. They're the ones hitting the threes in the second half. And the Pacers, who put a whole emphasis on defense and rebounding in the series, are getting out-hustled in the second half of these games. Where a Knicks team that you would think is playing 40 minutes and would tire out toward the end is starting to gain more strength at the end. And how long can that last? I don't know. Can it last into a conference final? Possibly. I still think the series goes 7. The Rangers, I could see this. There's a possibility. I had Rangers in 7 against Carolina. I think the Rangers are going to get one of these next 2 against the Hurricanes. Just because I think they're the more well-rounded team. I think that Laviolette has them on a good mojo. Knicks, it all depends on OG. If he can't go Friday and Sunday, I could really see it being 2-2. But I had the Knicks in 7 coming in. Indiana's going to have that jolt of being at home, and their bench that scored 46 points in each of the first 2 games in New York can put that up again in Indiana. And you don't know what Jalen Brunson's foot is right now. I mean, he got through last night and played great in the second half, but now the adrenaline's worn off. What happens? But I think both are in a good position to advance. Like, being the Knicks are up 2-0, the fact that it would take Indiana to win 4 of the next 5 to advance, I don't see this Knicks team losing that many unless they just lose more bodies. Like Josh Hart got hurt, or DiVincenzo, or like one of these guys that have been a big boost for them. Like they've been not great compared to when they have OG, but they played without him. So they're not nothing really changes. Taryn had, it's good to see both New York teams, those New York teams excelling at this time of the year. I wouldn't mind either of them in the final of their respective league. No, I think both leagues would love that too. I think I think a dream scenario for the NHL would be to get the Rangers in the Stanley Cup against either Rangers or Boston if Boston advances. They're tied 1-1 with Florida. To get those 2 against McDavid or against a team like Colorado, who has Cale Makar and Nathan McKinnon. Like that would be, I think, the dream scenario. I think the finals is ESPN this year, so to have that would be incredible. I was watching Vancouver come back against Edmonton last night, and then my mind went to '94 and said, "Well, Rangers Vancouver again." The similarities to 1994 just continued to mount up over the last couple of weeks, and you can't expect that. And I think this Knicks team right now is, if you had to look to head to something, if like Boston, I think, sorry, Gen B is going to roll over Cleveland. I think what's going to be really cool if everything goes to fruition is if there is a New York Boston Eastern Conference final in both the NBA and the NHL. I remember reading yesterday it's happened in the 70s, but not this late in the same round. And the last time we really had a series of that magnitude in both cities was the 03-04 Red Sox Yankee series. And those had a lot of emotion and intensity to them that you can absolutely respect. But to sum it up, the Rangers, I'm not concerned. I think they're the only concern is really the penalty, but it's not. I'm nitpicking, honestly. The top lines have been great. Trocheck's been great. Igor's been fantastic. Knicks, I'm only concerned with the injuries. Outside of that, there's Tibbs is calling a good game. They're winning the clutch. They're doing everything they need to do. The NBA, I think, would love the Knicks to be in it as well. Like if they got Knicks Boston, but it would be great. But I don't like. That's why I don't get the whole small market stuff that Carlisle's talking about. Like to me, and you hope that the NBA gives Rick Carlisle a huge fine for his comments, because he didn't have to take it that extra step, but he did, and it's sad to say. But again, Game 3, Rangers Hurricanes tonight. Game 3, Knicks Pacers Friday. I think Mike Breen is on the call for that, which I think will make Knicks fans pretty happy that Breen, Doris Burke, and JJ Redick are on the next 2 games of that series. They get a break from TNT. But we'll have post games again after each and every one of those games. I've been excited to do them. I hope you've enjoyed them as well. And we hope to do them. Maybe, if, as Terrence says, maybe we'll be doing both these teams in a championship series. Like that would be really cool. But long way to go, a long stretch in the year. As we wrap up this first segment, I want to spend some time with talk about the New York Liberty. They're going to begin their season next week. They have preseason action coming up. They played one game already against the Chicago Sky. Didn't really fare very well in that game. They lost 101-53, which not how the way you want to start your preseason, but I guess you get that out of the way. They play Connecticut tonight in another preseason game. They begin their regular season on Tuesday when they're at the Mystics, which they're already favored on ESPN Bet by 13.5. That's a really big number. But this is a good Liberty team. I mean, you talk about a team with Sabrina Ionescu, Brianna Stewart, Jonquel Jones, Benicia Laney Hamilton. Like, they've got the depth there, and Courtney Vandersloot. Like, their starting 5 is really good. The key is going to be, for their season this year, what depth do they get on the bench? They lost a lot of key pieces off that bench. Maria Johannes, who's a good three-point shooter, she's not playing because she's ready for the Olympics. You have Stephanie Dolson signed with another team. So can the Liberty get contributions from the players they drafted? Can they get the likes of Marquisha Davis from Ole Miss? Can she give them some spark off the bench? Jessica Carter from Mississippi State. Can those young players provide that spark, or can they sign some players in free agency at the end of training camp, or make a deal at the trade deadline that takes them where Las Vegas is? Because Las Vegas is still really good, and you have all these young and up-and-coming teams in the WNBA. Obviously, the spotlight's going to be on Caitlin Clark. I don't think Indiana's closer to win yet, but you have only a short window with this group when you build a super team. So if the Liberty want to take that next step, they've got to create that depth, especially in a championship series. So I'm looking forward to it. It should be a lot of fun. They get the Mystics on Tuesday, and then the big matchup we'll look ahead to is going to be next Thursday where the Liberty will be in Indiana to take on the aforementioned Caitlin Clark. That game on Amazon Prime Video. So we can look at that next week too. If the Knicks and Pacers were to play Game 6, it would be the next night in Indiana. So you'd have two New York teams visiting Indianapolis. I think the Liberty, though, are in a good position this year. I mean, we've seen teams win the Cup, win championships in recent years. NYCFC is the last local team to win. I could see the Liberty doing it, but they got to fix a couple of things. But excited for they get that season underway. A lot of attention on WNBA. The Liberty have a lot of national games this year, so they will be in the microscope with this emerging league. So we'll take our first break. We'll come back. We'll talk some baseball. Yankees and Mets. Yankees trying to go for a beatdown of the Astros. The Mets preparing for a huge 7 games that could change the course of their season. You're listening to New York State Sports and IE Sports Radio, direct feed for all that is sports. We will be right back after this.
Hey there, IE Sports Radio fans. Be sure to check out our sponsor, Seal the Deal Wax Seals by Cecilia B. You just finished your very own wedding or baby shower invitations and you're looking for that extra special touch? Maybe you just wrote a letter to a relative or a friend and you want to add to their smile when they receive it. Then seal the deal with Cecilia's handmade sealing wax stamps for your invitations, letters, and gifts. You bring the deal, we'll bring the seal. You can find them on Instagram at sealthedeal_wax stamps and on Facebook, Seal the Deal Wax Seals.
IE Sports Radio fans, this show is brought to you by Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. Planet Jerky is the official jerky of the 2022 California League champion Lake Elsinore Storm, Single A affiliate of the San Diego Padres. This all brisket jerky has gluten-free options, contains no MSG, no sodium nitrate, is low in sugar, and high in protein. Go to their website at planetjerky.net and follow them on Instagram at Planet Jerky. Planet Jerky, the jerky that's on a whole other planet.
What's up, Pittsburgh? This is Ralph DeLeese, the host of the Injury Report on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Are you that passionate, diehard Steelers, Penguins, Pirates, or just a Pittsburgh sports fan? Then please join me on the Injury Report every Tuesday on IE Sports Radio, the direct feed for all that is sports, and I will update you on all that's black and gold. Have you telling your Pittsburgh fans and friends what's up with Pittsburgh sports. Tune in Tuesday with me, Ralph DeLeese, the Injury Report on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Let's go!
And we'll be talking about a former Steeler joining a team here in New York toward the end of the show as we welcome you back here in New York State of Sports. Ricky Keeler with you here on IE Sports Radio, direct feed for all that is sports. Remember, continue to follow our great sponsors here at the network. Planet Jerky, they've got some awesome flavors. Go to Planet Jerky on Instagram at Planet Jerky. And those great Seal the Deal wax seals, follow on Instagram at Seal the Deal _wax stamps. And on Facebook, Seal the Deal wax seals. So let's talk some baseball. Yankees in action today. 5 o'clock Eastern first pitch in the Bronx. A little bit weird that they're playing a 5 o'clock game on a Thursday. I don't know if anybody knows why that is. I haven't seen that anywhere. Maybe there's something, I have no idea. But good pitching matchup. Ronel Blanco for the Astros. He's got a 2.09 ERA, 3-0 on the year. Against Marcus Stroman, 2-1 with a 3.41. Stroman's been batting a lot of walk issues lately. I don't think it's something to be too alarmed by, but this is a guy in Stroman that's usually around the strike zone. He's got 10 walks in his last 2 starts. He went 4 innings on April 28th against Milwaukee, 5 1/3 on May 3rd against the Tigers. So Stroman's got to be able to find the zone. But he's got to pick up where Luis Gil did on Tuesday and where Carlos Rodon did last night. Rodon's been really good at Yankee Stadium. Now, he had that rough start against Baltimore last week, but definitely redeemed himself this week. And look, Yankee fans, you shouldn't celebrate too much in kicking the Astros' tail. But after all the stuff they've done, all the series that they've broken your hearts, it's okay to celebrate a little bit. If the Yankees win today, they will have swept the season series with the Astros. They would go 7-0. And then coming off of winning the series in September against them last year, when you saw the debuts of Jason Dominguez and Austin Wells, it's something to be excited about. I mean, the Yankees right now are 25-13, and their season, not their season, but their May looks a lot better now compared to what it did when we left last week, where they lost 3 out of 4 to the Orioles. They struggled to score any runs against the Tigers on Friday, yet they find a way to win in walk-off fashion, 2-1 on the walk-off RBI single by Anthony Rizzo, and was Judge, Stanton, Verdugo putting together some hits. And we'll get into Alex Verdugo in a minute. I think he's been a key catalyst to what this team's been able to do over the last week. Saturday, they pick up a 5-3 victory. Clark Schmidt gets a win against Casey Mize. Schmidt goes 5 innings, 3 runs, 4 hits, strikes out 7. Look, you know what Clark Schmidt is. He's the definition of consistency. He's not going to be fantastic, but you kind of know what you're going to get with him. Rizzo hits a big 3-run homer in the 3rd. The Yankees have done a good job in having that big inning, but they never seem to pile onto it. If you wanted to nitpick, where they score 4 in the 3rd, but then they don't score again. But they take advantage of those opportunities. And then Sunday, they get the 5-2 win in 8 innings. Game stopped due to rain. Aaron Judge homers off Tarek Skubal, one of the better pitchers in the league, so starting to see him come around. And with the game tied at 2 in the 7th, Juan Soto gets the bases-clearing double that ends up being the game-winning hit. You saw last night, he hit the ball 440 feet into the left center field bullpen. Giancarlo Stanton's hitting lasers out of the stadium. The weather was warm yesterday in the Bronx, which means the ball is going to travel. Aaron Judge homered in the 3rd. So when you got Judge, Soto, and Stanton combining for all 9 runs, that's when this lineup is at their best. Soto right now is hitting .338 with an OPS of over 1,000. 9 home runs, 33 RBI. Been everything as advertised. We've talked about that. But the guy I want to get into and spend a little more focus on is Alex Verdugo. Verdugo, of course, missed the first 3 games of the Orioles series due to being on paternity leave. Congratulations to him. Comes back, plays well against Detroit. Then on Tuesday, against Justin Verlander, goes 3 for 5, hits a 3-run homer in the 1st inning, drives in 4. And this is a guy that helps this Yankee lineup continue to stay consistent in terms of the left-right balance that they've always looked for. Is he a perfect player? No. But he's been probably the biggest upgrade at the defense and left field they've had in the last few years. Right now he's hitting .264, .781 OPS. And you look at his last 15 games, he's hitting 304, 7 runs scored, 17 hits, 3 homers, 12 RBI. He's walked more than he strikes out. 7 walks, 6 Ks in that stretch. This is the Yankee lineup that needs to get productive outs. They can't keep racking up those strikeouts as much as strikeouts are not as frowned upon as they used to be. But now putting him behind Aaron Judge instead of Anthony Rizzo, they tried Gleyber Torres, and that hasn't worked. But you've seen the Yankees stay consistent with their lineup choices. Like, this would normally be a game in the past where, all right, I'm going to get my bench in here, rest a couple guys here, plan a day off for this guy here. They're not doing that this year. There's a sense of urgency around the Yankees that is very refreshing. Where this team knows, hey, let's rack up as many wins as you can now so that if and when Garrett Cole comes back, and you got to start to get more of the cavalry. Tommy Kahnle's on a rehab assignment right now. That's some good news. You have Nick Birdy on a rehab assignment, so the Yankees starting to get some pieces back in the bullpen. Hopefully they'll get some good news. I think Jason Dominguez might be on the track for some rehab games soon, but add some more depth to that Yankees outfield. And I think overall, if you told any Yankee fan they were 25-13 and no Garrett Cole, you'd sign up for that. The guy I want to highlight on the pitching side is Luis Gil. And we talked about him a little bit last week in terms of the potential he has. Goes up against Justin Verlander. Now, he held his own against Corbin Burnes extremely well on last Wednesday. 6 1/3, 2 hit ball, 1 walk, 5 strikeouts. Gives him a Kyle Tucker home run in the first on Tuesday, and that was it. 1 run, 1 hit, 4 walks, 5 strikeouts. You look at where Luis Gil is right now. He's 3-1 with a 2.92. 37 innings, 45 strikeouts, 24 walks. Walks are high. He's had a lot of those games where the command gets away from him. But I love the poise he has. And it kind of reminds you of where he was back in 21. In 21, before he went under the knife for Tommy John during the 22 season, this is a guy that showed the flashes with the late 90s fastball. The changeup was good. Can mix in secondary pitches. I don't think people thought he was this good. And you look for early litmus tests to kind of define a player. And you're seeing Luis Gil beat Corbin Burnes on the road in a big game the Yankees had to stop a skid, and then beat Justin Verlander to open an Astros series, which Aaron Boone even said these series are magnified. Even though Houston might not be playing well, that's a series that has a lot of intensity in the Bronx because of the Yankees-Astros rivalry. So to get that done on that stage, that's a good sign. Now you have a guy that you can rely upon. You may not rely upon just yet, but a guy that can live up to the moment. So the Yankees will finish up with Houston. They go on the road. They will be in Tampa Bay on Friday. And then Tuesday, they're actually going to be in Minnesota to take on the Twins. Twins right now are 21-15, 2.5 games behind the Guardians. Yankees have played well in Minnesota in the past. Obviously, the Twins have kind of rewritten that narrative in the last couple of years, but a good 6-game road trip for the Yankees against 2 teams 500 or above. I think you would sign up for a solid trip of a 3-3, 4-2 kind of vibe if you can get it. Now going to the Mets. Mets a little bit different. Now, one of the things you liked is what they did in St. Louis. Now, they only played 2 games, and they kind of get burned by not playing yesterday. And because they didn't play yesterday, they have to make up that game in August. Why is that such a big deal? The Mets have to have a series in Los Angeles against the Angels. They have to go to St. Louis to make up a game, and then have to go to Colorado. A lot of frequent flyer miles on that Met private jet. And I'm sure that makes a lot of Met fans unhappy that now, because I couldn't play the only time I can make up this game is in August. So kind of bad luck with the weather there. They did kind of salvage something out in St. Louis because they took some tough losses against Tampa Bay over the weekend. Jose Quintana got rocked on Friday. He'll start the series against Atlanta, which we'll get into in a minute. You get the blown save by Edwin Diaz on Sunday. Rays end up rallying to win that game in 10. But then they bounce back against the Cardinals. They win 4-3 on Monday. Brandon Nimmo with a solo shot in the 7th to break a 3-3 tie. Sean Manaea ends up going 6 innings. I know he only struck out one batter, but at least you're getting that length from Manaea that the Mets are looking for. And they get a good job out of the bullpen with Diekman, Ottavino, and Diaz. And then Wednesday, Mets get down 3-0 early. Jose Butto, who I think has been okay. I like the work he gives, bouncing back and getting through 5 innings. It's a good sign. And then the Mets break through against Miles Mikolas for 6 in the 5th. Brandon Nimmo, a 3-run homer, his 5th of the year. Pete Alonso, which I wrote about his struggles on Metsmerized, doing a good job with the sinker against Mikolas, and he's been bad against been pretty good against the sinker this year. Hits his 9th of the hits a 2-run double in the 5th to give him the lead, and then homers in the 9th off Chris Roycroft. Problem for Alonso right now, you can probably sense he's pressing a little bit, because he, in a contract year, it would be normal for him. He's racked up a decent amount of strikeouts and not drawing as many walks. I mean, that's normal for Pete. He's a boomer bust kind of player. But the lineup goes as he goes. And you're seeing the Mets not getting the same production from Lindor, who still is starting to get better, but he had the big hit on Thursday, which saved the Cubs series. They got a split out of it. But he hasn't been what they've been looking for necessarily. Marte, it's been all right. JD Martinez has had 2 hits on Tuesday, hitting .297, 701 OPS. So the OPSs aren't as high as you'd like them to be. Jeff McNeil's heating up. He had 3 hits on Tuesday. The lineup is starting to come together a little bit. But you like what Mendoza did. He gave Pete a day off. And under the last couple of years with Buck Showalter, Lindor and Alonso weren't getting days off. Lindor had off because he was sick. Pete, though, got the nice mental break, and I think it's going to help him going forward. But what's the big story of the weekend for the Mets was Christian Scott. Makes his Major League debut. Mets are going with a 6-man rotation for the time being. Largely, I think the odd man out eventually might be Adrian Hauser if he doesn't step his game up. Scott, a 5th-round pick back in 2021 out of Florida. Had to go up to being a starter. Remember, he was really more of a reliever type. And he had a really strong debut against the Rays. 6 2/3, 1 run, 5 hits, walked the batter, struck out 6. This is a pitcher who was dominant his first 4 or 5 starts at AAA, and you give the Mets credit for realizing that and saying, get this kid up and let him help us in the bigs. Don't waste those opportunities while a guy is going. And Ralph brings up a point that his pitching motion is exactly like Zach Wheeler. Well, he's wearing the same number as Zach Wheeler, so that usually will help that. But he's got a good mentality. Like, this is a guy that's going to go out there and just battle. I think that comes from playing in Florida. I cover the Mets minor league system over on Mets Minors, so it's a name I'm somewhat pretty familiar with. It's a Met farm system that's starting to get better with the pitching staff. I think overall its organizational ERA in the minors is the lowest in all baseball. I saw a couple days ago. So they're getting good pitching performances across the board. And this is a Met pitching rotation that's going to get deeper. David Peterson is on a rehab assignment. Tyler McGill is on a rehab assignment. So they're going to start to get more depth. And Joey Lucchesi's down in the minors and thrown 6 1/3 innings at AAA. So there's a lot of depth the Mets have in that rotation that they didn't look like they had about a few weeks ago. And there's not a lot of pressure on Scott. He's just got to go out there and don't pitch outside of the norm. He's going to have some pressure Saturday when he makes the Citi Field debut. And what is a big week for the Mets? They have 3 at home with the Braves. And they're getting the Braves at the right time. Atlanta's struggling to get some offense going outside of Marcell Ozuna and the power department. But they get Atlanta, who they already beaten in the series this year. Then they have a home and home with the Phillies. 2 at Citi Field Monday and Tuesday. And then 2 in Philadelphia Wednesday and Thursday. Philly's been one of the hottest teams in baseball. They just ended, I think, a 10-game win streak at home. And you hate to look at standings this early in the season. I don't like doing it, but we'll give you the pitching matchups this week before we do that. Charlie Morton against Jose Quintana on Friday. Max Fried against Christian Scott on Saturday. So we talked about Heel against Verlander and Burns. Let's see what Scott does against a guy like Fried, who has a good track record. And Sunday night on ESPN, Bryce Elder against Luis Severino. in terms of what to look at with the standings and why this week is so important, right now in the NL East, the Mets are 7 games back. They're 18-18. Nationals are also 18-18. Washington, I think, is at 500 better for the first time in a couple years. Mets right now are 6 back of Atlanta in the loss column, 5 back total, and 7 behind the Phillies. Again, it's only May 9th, but if the Mets get swept here and start to dig themselves more of a hole, like, this is your chance to gain some ground and maybe not close a gap, but keep it from getting wider. Now, they'll get the Marlins after that, and the Marlins are terrible. But if you can go 4-3, 5-2 on this stretch, I think you sign up for that right now. And you're getting 5 of these 7 games at home. And with not a lot of series to make up ground against, remember the old days you used to get like 19 games against divisional opponents. Now you get 12. So when you get these chances, you have to capitalize on them. So big week for the Mets. Yankees are right now percentage points behind the Orioles, 5.5 ahead of the Red Sox. Red Sox over 500. They've had one of the better rotations in the league, and they've had a lot of injuries, including to their top guy, Brayan Bello. So should be a good week for both those local teams ahead. A couple things we didn't get to in the last segment. Devils picking 10th in the NHL draft lottery. They are also in the search for a new coach, and a name popped up today that could be a name they could be interested in. Sheldon Keefe, the head coach of the Toronto Maple Leafs, got fired, which makes sense. I mean, the Maple Leafs have been out of the first round 3 of the last 4 years. So you're due to make a change in Toronto with all that talent, but that's a name that could come to the Devils and make an impact. Another one is a guy by the name of Craig Berube. Now, those who are not familiar with Craig Berube, he was the head coach of the St. Louis Blues from 2018 to 2023. Played 17 seasons in the NHL. Was part of that. Was the interim coach of the Blues when they won the Stanley Cup in 2019. He's been the head coach of the Flyers. He played 17 seasons for the Flyers, Leafs, Flames, Capitals, and Islanders. So this is a guy with a lot of experience, and I think if you're the Devils after the Lindy Ruff experiment, then trying Travis Green, who ultimately gets the job at Ottawa, maybe you go a different approach. Berube's a hot name right now, but Keefe's going to put himself in the mix, and the Devils, I'm sure, would like to get a new head coach in place pretty soon. Ralph is mentioning Mike Sullivan as a name. I mean, Sullivan was a name that was hot over the last couple of years. That wouldn't be surprising. I think I read, and Ralph can correct me on this, I know Pittsburgh has done a lot of front office maneuvering that might have Sullivan maybe rethink about being there. But that would be a home run hire if the Devils were to get it, especially with that young group. You need a veteran coach in there. It's going to make an impact. The Devils are trying to replicate what Peter Laviolette is doing with the Rangers right now. Islanders are keeping everything intact. Lou Lamoriello is staying. Patrick Waugh is staying. And we'll see if the Islanders, as we mentioned a few weeks ago, add some offense into the mix going into next year. So we'll take one more break. We'll come back and we'll do some small news. Talk about the acquisition the Giants made earlier today. And we'll talk some soccer. The Red Bulls get messied. Not a good week down in South Beach. And NYCFC missing an opportunity at home against Colorado. We'll dive into both those things coming up next on New York State of Sports and IE Sports Radio, direct feed for all that is sports. We'll be right back after this.
What's up, everybody? This is Taryn Rodriguez. Are you a fan of volleyball? Are you a fan of Thunder Spikes? Then I have the show for you. Set Point, where I cover NCAA men's and women's volleyball, high school boys and girls volleyball, beach volleyball, and even professional volleyball. Catch the action every week here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
What's good, everyone? It's Drewski, the host of Heart of Texas Sports on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. On this station, we cover everything in the Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas area. From where we cover the Dallas Cowboys, the Dallas Stars, Dallas Mavericks, Dallas Wings, Texas Rangers, TCU, SMU, we cover it all right here every Wednesdays from 9 to 10 p.m. Central Time. Make sure you stay live with me on the Heart of Texas Sports on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Sports fans, do you like teams that are tough, cities that are tougher, and fan bases that are passionate about their teams? How about teams that are historic and stadiums that are iconic? Then you belong in Chicago, and you need to check out Chi-Town Weekly. Join me, Adam Kernan, every week as we keep up with all things Chicago sports. Bears, Bulls, Blackhawks, Cubs, White Sox. We'll cover them all, plus more. The Windy City is always buzzing, and we'll keep you up on all the big games and major stories. So tune in to Chi-Town Weekly every week right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Check out Adam's show, both of the shows, the Chicago show. Cubs had a good time with the Mets with the split last week, but also the Neutral Zone. Some good stuff during the Stanley Cup playoffs there. Wrapping up our last 10 minutes plus here on New York State of Sports for the day. Marcus Los Greatest here. Marcus, how you doing, man? Happy to have you aboard here on the Spreaker chat. Again, I want to remind you guys we're going to have some more post-game shows throughout the week. Hopefully you'll hear some of our IE Sports contingent on some of these shows. For Friday morning, we'll have Rangers Hurricanes Game 3 reaction. And Saturday morning, Knicks Pacers Game 3 reaction. We're trying to do one for most of the games during the Rangers and Knicks runs. We've done one pretty much for all of them except Game 6 with Knicks Philly, which was a really good game, but prior commitments got in the way. But we've been having some fun along the way with that. So let us talk some soccer. Start with the Red Bulls, who, as I said, they got Messi in Miami. Lionel Messi with a goal and 5 assists, setting an MLS record as the Red Bulls got ahead early 1-0. Dante Van Zier scored in the 30th minute. It was a Red Bull team that beat Miami 4-0 earlier in the year without Messi there, obviously. But Miami then gets two goal from Matias Rojas, a goal from Messi, and then Rojas scores again. And Luis Suarez says, let me get a hat trick, 3 goals in a 13-minute stretch. Miami with 7 shots on goal, and they scored 6 times, 16 shot attempts total. Had the possession 58% of the time, and that's a bad loss. I mean, Emil Forsberg does get a penalty kick for a goal late in the game, but You'd like the Rebels to put up more of an effort than that. Now, they've also had a couple guys get some red cards in the last couple of weeks, so that limits the depth that you have. But not very good. And with that loss, the Red Bulls now are 4th in the table in the Eastern Conference, 7 points behind Miami. Their next game is going to be Saturday against the New England Revolution. The Revolution are 2-1-7 on the year. They're awful. That game is going to be at Red Bull Arena in Harrisburg. New England has scored just 7 goals this season. Last time these two teams played was last year. New England won 1-0. But the question is going to be, Van Zier usually gets those assists. He got his 2nd goal of the season. Forsberg his 3rd. As Lewis Morgan will see if he can add to his 7-goal total in this one. NYCFC was one of the best teams in April. They could not get their May started on a good note. They lost 2-0 to Colorado. Rapids scored a goal in the 16th minute by Rafael Navarro, 86th minute by Cole Bassett. And a game where the NYCFC had possession 2/3 of the time. They just couldn't get shots on net. Only 3 shots on goal in the game. And this is a team that struggled to find offense at times. And now this team going on the road the next 2 games, you kind of want them to finish the home slate a good note, but it's hard to rip them too much. They've built up a lot of ground. They were at the bottom of the Eastern Conference to start the year. Now they're working their way back up. So Nick Cushing's got some good things going, but never like to have a shutout happen again. They've been shut out a total, I believe, that's their 3rd shutout already this year. So got to find a way to get more shots on goal for this offense. They are going to play Toronto on Saturday. Second time they played Toronto FC this year. They beat them 2-1 on March 16th back at Yankee Stadium. And then Wednesday, they will take on the Philadelphia Union, 7:30 Eastern. Union with 14 points. Both these teams tied in the standings right now. You have NYCFC, Philly, and Charlotte, and DC. So there's a 4-way tie for 6th in the Eastern Conference. So these are some big games. And the Red NYCFC take on Toronto, who's 3rd. So take on 2 of the top 6 or 7 in the conference. Can they find a way to get a point out of one of these 2 games on the road? That'll be interesting. The other league I wanted to talk about, I want to give some love to the NWSL. We haven't really gotten to do that on the show. In New Jersey, New York, Gotham FC. They had a couple of games this week, and they picked up a couple of wins, 1-0 in each game. Lynn Williams got the team's 300th goal earlier this week against North Carolina. She scored in the 11th minute to win that game. They play it in Red Bull Arena in Harrison, New Jersey. And then last night against Houston, Williams scored in the 8th minute. So they're getting some pretty good production out of Lynn Williams. She has been arguably their best player. She's continued to find a way to put the ball in the back of the net, which is always a key. Williams is a 30-year-old forward. She has, again, scored in back-to-back games. She's constantly putting shots on net. And this is a player that I think you're going to keep monitoring. Last year, she had 7 goals and 17 starts. So this is a player that the offense is going to revolve around. And when you look at net, when you get a couple of clean sheets, you got to love what Anne-Katrin Berger's doing, 33-year-old goalie from Germany. She's actually only allowed 1 goal in the last 3 starts. She was in the Women's Super League with Chelsea last year, so she comes over from England and playing pretty well. Right now, Gotham FC in the early portion of the season is at 11 points. They are 7th in the NWSL, 7 points behind the leaders, Kansas City and Orlando. Their next couple of games, they will play San Diego coming up on Sunday, 7:30 Eastern from Snapdragon Stadium in California. So we'll probably get some love for the NWSL. And Esther Gonzalez's 2 goals this season. Rose Lavelle, name you're familiar with the women's national team. She has a goal in 3 matches as well. Giants making a move to help their receiving core. They add Allen Robinson on a Steelers had cut him last month, like a month and a half ago. And look, the Giants, they're not going to look right now. It's tough to add quality in the receiving group this late in the offseason. You're looking for bodies and hoping they fit. Robinson, of course, was much more well known for his time with the Jaguars when he had some success with Blake Bortles. Goes to Chicago, was a bust there. Goes to the Rams. Didn't really contribute the way they wanted him to in that spot. Goes to Pittsburgh last year, and the Steelers didn't throw the ball a lot. So if you're not going to get a lot of opportunities to show anything, you're not going to put up the numbers that you expect. So when you now add Robinson to the mix, and you look at this Giant receiving room with Slayton, Jalen Hyatt, Wan'Dale Robinson, Isaiah McKenzie they added, Isaiah Hodgins, and now you add Malik Neighbors, the rookie. There's a lot of depth in the room. The question is going to be how the depth emerges during mini camp, training camp, and which one can be another security blanket for Daniel Jones. Remember, they're still waiting for a decision on Darren Waller, which affects what they do at tight end. They did add the Penn State tight end in the draft that we talked about last week. But at this time of the year, you've already added your premier guys. You're looking to get more of the depth guys. And if you find a diamond in the rough, so be it. Maybe Allen Robinson is that. And it's a low risk, high reward kind of move. So good word from the Giants on that. Next week, the NFL schedule comes out. So we will be talking about that on the show next Thursday, which is going to be our 10-year, the IE Sports 10-year anniversary show. Going to do some fun things on that one. One of them being we're going to look back at the best number 10s for each New York team or New Jersey team, because we like to cover the locals here. So that should be a lot of fun. And look, like I've enjoyed doing it. Like this is my 26th show doing it so far, and I mean it's been definitely some fun shows to do. So you have a lot of stuff going on in the area this week. Yankees and Mets playing some big series. Obviously, the Knicks and Rangers stealing the town with what they've been doing right now. And look, we'll wrap it up with what I talked about at the beginning. I don't think that... Oh, I want to add... There was one more thing I wanted to add on the Rangers. So, SNY Rangers tweets out, and this is what the New York fan effect has on people. So, the Carolina Hurricanes, you know how like when you go to games and they're big games and you go to your seat and there's a towel, a rally towel there, they want you to wave, or a t-shirt or something like that. So, there's like a whiteout or whatnot, or so, whatever it is. So, there are towels on the seats at PNC Arena that's in Raleigh for tonight's Rangers-Hurricane Game 3. The towels don't say "Go Canes." The signs don't say... They say, "Make them hear you." First off, how can they make them hear you when you're waving a towel? Like that doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. Number two, you're clearly seeing the impact that Madison Square Garden is having on the other team's fan bases. You saw it in Philly when they basically had to get the owner of the Sixers, or one of the owners of the Sixers, to buy tickets to prevent the Knicks fans from showing up. And you saw how loud Knicks fans were in Philly. You're seeing how the Ranger fan that can go down to Raleigh, buy tickets for Games 3 and Game 4, and get it for much cheaper than they can at the Garden, they're going to flock the place. Like, why wouldn't a Ranger fan go down to North Carolina for the weekend? For tonight's game and then for Saturday's Game 4. You could do that. But the amount that is just to get in the building at the Garden is crazy. I think Game 5 for the Garden was like close to $400 just to get in. And that's if there is one. But you're clearly seeing the Garden crowd getting in teams' heads. And that's what's made this week so special. It's the fact that the Rangers and Knicks each won their 2 games this week. You saw them each win their first 2 games in the first round. The only loss of the Garden this postseason was the crazy Game 5 in Philadelphia with Tyrese Maxey. And yes, Ralph, there is only one real towel. This is the black and gold route. Yep, we get it. This Steelers stuff, yeah, we get that. But props to you guys that have been going to these games and bringing the noise and bringing the intensity and rallying the guys, rallying the players around it. Because that's the big 6th man, or the 12th. Seattle's the 12th man, but I guess hockey, you got the 13th man. You've got basketball, I guess you could be the 6th man. Just that extra emotional lift that you gotta love about this team, this city. When this city rallies around something, like they're rallying around the Knicks and their grit, rallying around the Rangers, and a historic start that they've been on in this playoffs, it's special. And it has the chance to be even more special. So remember, you can follow me on Twitter and on X at Liquidator555. You can follow the show on Twitter and X at NY State Sports IE. You can also email me, rickjkeeler@gmail.com. Follow the network on Twitter and X at IE Sports Radio. want to hear from you. Send me your thoughts. We're going to get some of these other IE Sports Radio hosts here on the show. I love doing some of the posting. We'll get Adam back on, Davidson on. We're gonna have some fun over the next week or so with the hockey and the basketball. Of course, our big 10-year anniversary show next week as well. Same time, 2 p.m. Eastern. So as we await Friday night, we'll wait for that news on what happens to OG Anunoby. Does he play? Does he not play? I don't think he does. I don't think he should. But we're going to see. The fact of the matter is, and you also learn with the Knicks, talk about them needing another star. They've got a number one. And how the guys just rally around him when he's off the floor. You see the loss of energy. When he comes back, that team got a boost. And that other team on the other sideline that thought he was out felt it in a big way and felt the guarding crowd in a big way. Rangers, will they wrap it up before Monday? I don't think so, but you never know what this team is capable of doing. So lots of fun going on here in New York. The weather was nice. It's like 80 or something. But it's going to be a good time. Memorial Day coming up in a couple weeks. We get some baseball. There's usually goes to the checkpoint, mini camp, all those things coming up here on the network. All of us here at IE Sports Radio for New York City Sports. I'm Ricky Keeler saying have a great rest of the week. Enjoy Game 3 of Rangers Hurricanes tonight. And I'll see you back here on Friday morning